Well, that definitely seems like it's true, yeah.
No, but
and the thing is, I'm not like a big cheerleader for the cops or anything. I'm not like a Blue Lives Matter guy by any stretch. I'm not by any stretch a person that's going to say because there's cops that are assholes to black people and white people. And I think the cops as an institution are totally corrupt. When I say that, like George Floyd's a perfect example. Here's a guy who is a criminal. Here's a guy who is dealing drugs. He's got a long rap sheet. He's a burglar. And the guy clearly died from fentanyl. The autopsy report in that county said that he died of a heart attack. And he had all these drugs in his system. He not only had fentanyl, but also had...
First of all, to say he clearly died of fentanyl was not true. Nothing in terms of the presentation to the ER, nothing in terms of the way he died looked like a fentanyl overdose. That's completely not true. And the coroner's office did not say that he died of fentanyl either. None of the statements he just made are true.
Methamphetamine in his system.
But the coroner said that he died from the knee on his neck, right?
I think it was like a compressive thing to the neck that led to heart attack or something, or heart failure, I think was what the coroner ended up saying.
Autopsy said it was a heart attack. Autopsy said it was a heart attack.
Is there a disagreement between the autopsy and the coroner?
I believe there were 2 autopsies performed. I think there was one that was performed by the county and one that was performed by somebody else. But yeah, there was a dispute about that. And they did find drugs in his system. So, and in any case...
But what does drugs have to do with the situation of why he got arrested in the first place?
Well, he died from he got arrested because he was trying to pass a counterfeit bill. So he was in the process of committing a crime. And then he was tweaking out because he was high. And then he was in this unfortunate position where, you're high and probably having some kind of heart attack or some kind of medical episode while you're in the process of an arrest.
Well, if you can't breathe and you're screaming out, mommy, you know what I'm saying? And you're saying that you can't breathe and they keep putting force on him. I mean,
he was saying he couldn't breathe before he was on the ground. He was saying he couldn't breathe before they were trying to get him into the cop car, and he was saying that.
Do you not think that both of those things could have worked together to lead to his death? Having a high amount of fentanyl and previous case of heart disease could have easily raised the fatality rate of that super doesn't matter. If I'm high on some drug and then somebody throws me to the ground and starts leaning on my neck, and the drug and the guy on my neck both lead to me dying, the person that's on my neck is the one that killed me, right? That's bullshit that you would say, like, oh, well, it was the drug. Like, everything theoretically contributes to it, right? Like, here is a fact. One of the things that most likely contributed to George Floyd dying was probably him being overweight. I think he was overweight. But I wouldn't say that, like, obesity was the cause of death. The cause of death was the cop on his neck. The fentanyl wasn't going to kill him. The cop did. How did Crowder survive his recreation of the experiment? How does weight on the back of your neck prevent breathing? You can link me Crowder's recreation, but... Is that even like a YouTube video that's up anymore, or? Can you speak on why we would look at the George Floyd cases that way, but not the Capitol riot deaths? I don't know what you mean by that.
Just like with Epstein, I am going to be a human experiment here because we did in an agitated. Gerald.
Yeah. Do you?
So let me know when you guys are ready to start.
All right, I'm ready to go when you are.
Yep.
He's got to pee. How do you think George Floyd felt?
Stop it.
Well, I'm just saying.
Well, hold on a second. They didn't say they started the timer.
We're ready when you are.
Ready? And 3, 2, 1.
Okay. All right. So
timer down.
Neil
on my neck here, shoulder.
Oh, pause the timer. Oh my goodness.
It's okay.
There we go. All right, now I'll roll it back.
It's actually more uncomfortable for me because I have a bad shoulder. So my left shoulder right now is popped out.
Bro, you can talk. The guy's not even putting any weight on it. Fuck, I need a friend to do this right now.
He's there, Brendan.
Yeah.
Tokenawa.
Is this how he was
The dude is like sitting on his like calves. He's like barely
injury, and the fact that Tokenawa put the cuffs on my
for Tokenawa, I'm not sure. Sure. Do we have a
there's new evidence coming in, so I don't really
of his
know.
low back? Well,
I can pull the photo back up.
You know what?
To
pleasant.
But looks unpleasant. Proper. I don't know. I
Wasn't
can't
he on there
tell
for
you.
only a portion of the time? He should. It's a diagonal pressure.
See, that's two of us saying that. The officer is higher.
Okay,
absolutely.
so token out and just make your body upright.
Yeah, push it higher.
Higher.
I can't. It looks like he's on his what, traps? Is he even on his neck? I'm so confused right now. What is happening?
Higher.
Bro, look at this fucking. Sorry, you can't see it. Look at the fucking Floyd picture. Jesus, fuck. This dude is like in there. He's like digging his knee like as much as he can get into this dude. Oh god, I'm not gonna be able to find the magnifier now. Fuck. Oh, we found it.
That's He's saying trying to keep your body straight
about
up.
There, right about there. Yeah.
There you
That might be too high. A little back.
No, not you, Brennan.
So, Steven, did
now,
that
Brennan,
change
let go of my legs
anything
and just hold my feet.
Now,
so that's what happened.
Now, ask Token now if he feels that he's got to put more pressure on his knees.
Well, I'll tell you what, it actually is less weight on me from when he got up. Right. I have less.
Destiny, that one guy in the George Floyd situation, you wouldn't attribute death to drugs, but in the Capitol riots, you would attribute at least one death to drug overdose? Yes, because the people that died of drug overdose in the Capitol riots were just, they OD'd. They were like in the crowd and then they died. It's not like they were fighting and getting hit and then all of a sudden they got knocked over. And then I'm pretty sure they just like, one person OD'd from, there was somebody said MDMA or ecstasy, or I don't think it was meth. Another guy outside had like a heart attack. But those people, it's not like people, how could you even compare those things? It's not like people were like fighting for their lives, getting smacked, and then eventually their body died and they had drugs in their body. I'm pretty sure they literally OD'd on the spot and died. Or if you have video or something proving otherwise, feel free to show me. Wrong, the girl in Adderall got trampled. My understanding is that girl had like a fucking drug OD and then she fell over. I don't know if she actually died from being trampled. I thought she was having an overdose of amphetamines. Riots, overdose. Because I remember seeing, this is the girl that's in the middle of the crowd, and then eventually she goes down, but it's not like she got like knocked over. I think she had an overdose, then she fell over. I don't know if she got trampled. I guess it's possible she got trampled. If she did, then I would say, oh, well, that's a death I guess you can attribute to the riots. But my understanding is she was basically dying like before she hit the ground. Whereas with Floyd, that wasn't the case. He wasn't having an overdose.
Wait on me.
Probably
again,
pushing up with
anyone
his
who knows
feet.
anything about
but by
grappling,
your logic, that would be it would be the trampling that killed her. No, you're fucking retarded. What the fuck are you saying? George Floyd was not having a fentanyl overdose. He had fentanyl in his system, but that's it. He already ingested. He'd already done it. I don't know what when the peak effect action or whatever is for fentanyl. But it's not like he was having an overdose and then the cop came and put his knee on him. He died because he got thrown into the car, they got thrown on the ground, and then a cop sat on his fucking neck for 10 minutes. That's what killed him. For the lady at the in the Capitol riots, I don't think she was getting trampled. She was just out about, and then I'm pretty sure she fell over because she was having an overdose. She might have gotten trampled after that. If somebody wants to link me like a corner report, I'll concede. I don't even feel strong about it. I'm just saying that my understanding was that like she died because she had an overdose, not because she like fell over with drugs in her system and then she got trampled and died. But she had a full-on fucking overdose before anybody hit her or did anything to her. That was my understanding of it. Those aren't even remotely comparable.
Furthermore, these are the same motherfuckers that during COVID, they were like, oh, they're over-reporting the amount of COVID deaths. You know, you're old and you die and you have COVID in your system, it's because of COVID. You have a heart attack and you die because you have COVID in your system, it's COVID. They blamed everything, remember? They were like, this is the government, they're over-reporting it, they want us to be scared, etc. If you have COVID in your system, doesn't mean it's a COVID death. There are other comorbidities that could have killed you. And the second, fentanyl is in George Floyd. But that's the only way that motherfucker could have died.
It's a fentanyl death.
It's a fentanyl death. If you got fentanyl in your system and a guy fucking sits on your neck for 8 minutes straight while you say you can't breathe, it must be fentanyl.
True. Okay, actually true, yeah. Do you think that even zero drugs in his system and no history of heart disease, that he would have had less likely chance of dying in that situation? That's not what the protocol is for police officers. What are you There's a reason why police officers handle suspects in certain ways. It's the reason why most police officers don't do chokeholds or strangleholds. Because when you're treating a suspect, when you're putting somebody into, not jail, when you're detaining somebody, you have to treat them like they might have conditions that will lead to their death if you treat them in a certain way. Like, chances are, if you took like Joe Rogan or somebody really healthy, you could handle them in a lot more of a brutal way than you could like an 85-year-old person. But I couldn't take an 85-year-old person, powerbomb them into the ground, and then be like, what, bro, He's 85 and overweight. If he would have been younger and healthier, he would have been fine. I didn't kill him. Like, what the fuck? Stop acting like I'm not saying the cop isn't responsible. Jesus Christ. What did you say? You said... Wait, do you not think those things could have worked together to lead to his death? Having a high amount of fentanyl and previous cause of heart could have raised the fatality. It's not working together is weird. Working together just is a weird way of putting it, right? If you're on a lot of aspirin or you've got like a blood thinner and I walk up to you and I slit your wrists, like, did they work together to kill you? Kind of. But like one thing killed you. One thing really killed you. One thing really caused you to die. You might have other things that might increase the fatality of a certain action, but the fentanyl was not going to kill George Floyd. He wasn't having an overdose. He wasn't ODing. We have a man on fentanyl. We don't know if he took enough to overdose. We now introduce a cop sitting on his neck. Now he's dead. If it wasn't for the cop, he would have survived. Therefore, the cop... Well, yeah, sure. I don't think he was having... Fuck, I like this part. I've never done any, like, fentanyl shit. I don't fuck with these kinds of drugs. So I don't... Fuck, and there's no good... There's no good place to read about drugs! Because our government is fucking shit! Okay, well, I won't even be able to tell you. Then why was he saying, I can't breathe before he got out of the car? Was he lying? Yes, in the car, he was lying. Yeah, he was. Obviously. But when he was on the ground, he wasn't lying. The cop on the ground, my take on the situation is, the guy on the ground probably didn't believe him when he said that he couldn't breathe because he was probably lying about it when he was in the car. That's probably why the cop was on his neck for so long. That's my guess. Did Chauvin deserve the murder charge? I would have to look into exactly the rationale for it. But if you it's a derelict of duty. If you like fuck up with such gross negligence, and you're a police officer, probably. Like here's the reality of the situation. Police officers are entrusted with a higher amount of privilege and therefore responsibility because we entrust in them the ability to enact violence on us in legally permissible ways that no other group of citizen gets to do, right? So if that's the case, if they're allowed to kill us, there's a very high level of responsibility that goes along with that. And if they're negligent in that responsibility that they're entrusted with, if they're negligent in that in such a way that it causes somebody to die, they're going to be held accountable for it in a way that I think would go above and beyond even a normal citizen, I would say. That has to be the case. Do you think Chauvin really meant to kill him? No. I don't think Chauvin meant to kill him. I think anybody that says that, I would ignore everything they have to say about anything. You're a fucking moron. There's no shot that Chauvin meant to kill him. But he acted in a way where he was entrusted to handle that situation. The state gave him the power to enact violence on a citizen, and he utilized that power in a grossly irresponsible manner. And if that is the case, then I think he should be held responsible for it. So it's the state's fault. The state trained him that way. Email me with state training protocol showing knee on neck equals standard training, and I will unban. Good luck. Oh, no. Oh my god, the bot tried to save him twice. Hi, what's up?
How are you?
Pretty good. What's up?
Not much. Just wanted to clear up a couple things from chat. Some things that were said that kind of triggered me.
Yeah, go for it, babe.
Yeah. So the first thing I think is just to like get a sense of what murder is, because there are a lot of kind of ideas that are thrown around there on the internet that aren't true. You don't need intentionality for something to be murder. Murder is defined by causing.
Careful, because you do need some kind of intentionality, right? Maybe just not the intent to murder.
So you need a no, I stand by my statement.
Are you
do
sure?
not need an intent to kill.
Okay, maybe sure.
For something to be murder.
But the action that you did had to have been intentional or something, right?
What do you mean? A volitional act? There might be some volitional act requirement.
Like if I back up into somebody and accidentally knock them over, I'm not going to get charged with murder there. But if I turn around and I punch them and I intended to punch them, even if I didn't intend to kill them, that intentionality could be murder, right?
There's almost always some volitional act requirement for these kinds of statutes, but in terms of a specific intent to kill, that is not necessary for murder.
Sure.
Common law murder is defined by causing someone else's death with malice, malice aforethought, and malice can be an intent to kill, a premeditated intent to kill. It can also be depraved, reckless indifference, which is one of the statutes that applied to Derek Chauvin. It can also be a kind of transferred intent theory related to felony murder that we've talked about, where it's totally a strict liability offense. The intent, the malicious intent there is the desire to commit another kind of inherently dangerous felony. So if you go to assault that's a hard one because it kind of merges with the murder. But let's say that you go to
rob a store and somebody dies in the process of that robbery, you can get charged with felony murder.
You didn't intend to kill him. In fact, you weren't even reckless with your conduct. Let's say it was a totally non-reckless robbery, or however you want to say it.
Like, I think the way felony murder works is like you could show up, rob a store, and the guy freaks out because like he sees you, has a heart attack, and dies. And I think you can get charged with like felony murder for shit like that, right?
Yeah. And so he was convicted of both felony murder and reckless indifference murder. And so like you don't need a specific intent to kill, number one. And number two, I agree with kind of all of what you're saying with the special privileges of being, a police officer, part of the state apparatus for enforcing laws.
Hold on one second. Floyd had no bruising on his neck, either above or below the skin. Chauvin was not pressing hard, and Floyd was talking the whole time, indicating air was flowing just fine. Okay, so firstly, you can talk without being able to breathe. Go try it sometime. I'd encourage you to do it right now. Secondly, you disagree with the coroner report, so unless you've got like a third one that you want to link, go for it. Otherwise, stay banned. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone causation was the big issue of this entire trial. I don't think that people should necessarily be. There were some crazy things that people were saying that you should be arrested for, or there should be defamation for saying that the causation was it was fentanyl as opposed to the hold. But it absolutely was the critical aspect of this trial. Were kind of two questions. One, did the Officer Chauvin actually cause the death? Right? Because if he didn't cause the death, if the cause was fentanyl, then he couldn't have been guilty for murder. But so the state absolutely had the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that it was the hold that caused it. Now, that doesn't mean that just because, as you were saying, just because you have a particularly fragile victim doesn't give you an excuse to do some conduct that is going to cause that person's death. That's reckless conduct, right? Now, if your conduct is not very reckless and enough to meet the malicious murder statute, then you're going to fail on that element. But if you take the victim as you see him, if you are rough with a cancer patient, or let's say that you push a cancer patient on the ground, and you cause their death, it's no excuse to say, well, he was going to die tomorrow or he was going to die next week. I mean, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so
it's kind of like when the COVID shit rolled around and people saying a lot of the people that got sick were old people that were going to die anyway. So it wasn't really COVID that killed them. And it's like, what? Can I walk through like an old person's home and just start like blasting and it's like not murder because all of these people are like close to death? It's like the dumbest thing in the world. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There is some threshold of connection to the actual thing. Like if you have to be a substantial cause, I think in Wisconsin. And I don't know how you define substantial cause versus insubstantial cause. But real quick before I leave it, because I just wanted to go over a couple things. There's one thing that you said, which was about, or some commentator was talking about the police training and whether or not this was in their training. That doesn't matter, folks. That doesn't matter. The police doesn't get to determine. It's some indication of mens rea for an intentionality for Chauvin, but I do not think that the police's training should be dispositive on what it means to be reckless and indifferent. If the police had in their manual, it's cool to just shoot randomly into like buildings, would you guys, well, it's in the manual, therefore by definition it was within the training, therefore by definition anything that's in the police manual and in the police training is lawful? That's not law. the police manual is made according to, like, I don't know, whoever's in charge of the police. That's not like some state law. That's just the policy that they pass. And so not just because something is a established policy of the police does not mean that you should accept that that is a standard of conduct for police and how they should operate with respect to like murder statutes. Also, there was a ton of evidence during the trial that this was not what was being trained at all. And that what they were referring to was not applicable or was not relevant anymore or was something old. And there were a bunch of use of force experts that were given, because justified use of force is an affirmative defense that Derek Chauvin would present to be cleared of all the charges. And so he was charged as though he were any other person. And it was his burden to show that there was some, or at least to present some evidence that the use of force was reasonable under police standards. So I just wanted to real quick clear up that this murder trial, like if you have any interest in it, you should take a watch, and you shouldn't just like, I don't know, say that intentionality is required or talk about how fragile George Floyd was, because those are kind of not really relevant.
Okay, love you, bud.
All right, love you, bud.